I work in procurement and have done so for 10 years, and unfortunately I can see that we're in for another round of supply chain issues and price increases. Welcome to the channel. I'm Luke. I live in the UK with my family, where we try to live a more simple, frugal and intentional life. Now, as I said, I have worked in procurement for around 10 years, and I know the irony of that. I know the irony of the person who doesn't like spending money is in charge of tens of £1,000,000 of spend. So I like spending money at work, but I don't at home. What that says about me, I don't know. And over the last 10 years, I've seen a lot of change in the world in terms of Brexit, in terms of COVID, in terms of different conflicts spiking, and how that really impacts on supply chains and ultimately the cost of goods. Now, unfortunately, we are at another event, which is the conflict between the US and Israel with Iran. And what the consequence of that is, supply chains are tightening, prices are going higher. And it really is as simple as that. And it's down to three key factors. And it really is the holy trinity of issues for supply chain risks and cost increases. And they are: the currency costs are going up. The cost to freight goods from halfway across the world is going up. And the most fundamental of all, the cost of energy to produce goods is massively going up. You put all three of those together and we've got a problem, because whatever the consumable is that we were buying just 2-3 months ago is now costing more to produce, is costing more to ship around the world, and the currency situation just doesn't make as much sense. Now, what this does is mean that suppliers are trying to be clever, trying to hold off production just for another couple of days, another couple of weeks, maybe a month if we can push it. So hopefully it all blows over and we can get back to normal. This then creates another layer where supply chains have stopped production, demand is skyrocketing, supply is restricting, and again, this pushes prices up. This is across everything, because the West and Britain has not learned its lessons from over the last 10 years. Britain is too reliant on imports, too reliant on cheap imports from cheap parts of the world. And those parts of the world are cheap because their energy is cheap, their labour's cheap, and freighting and currency conversions don't really matter in the grand scheme of things. And it blows my mind still, even though I've worked in the profession for 10 years, that I can make things and fill containers and ship them across the world and unload those containers and all the associated costs, and it's still cheaper than making a mile down the road. Crazy. But hey, that's the global economy. COVID should have been the warning shot, and should have been the moment that the West reset itself and went, actually, COVID may not be a one-off. There's always something, and generally there is always something every 20 to 30 years. But it seems in the 2020s and the last decade as well, those events are becoming more common, and it's creating a lot of volatility in the markets. And so rather than weaning ourselves at a moderate pace into making stuff in the West, we've just continued to go, actually, we'll continue to buy from the East because it's a penny cheaper. And without disclosing what industry I'm in and who I procure goods for and what type of goods I procure some goods for the public sector and private sector. And it really is, the tenders and contracts can state what they want. Cheapest by a penny wins. And cheapest by a penny means buying from China. So guess what everybody does? They buy from China. And this affects everything because most industries are geared up that way. So the effect of this is, and I know it sounds a bit boring and a bit dry, but this is what I know, professionally. The fact is, these things are all going to come together, and supply is going to be restricted. Demand's going to be, especially as fear and as we'll see it over the next kind of few days and weeks, I think, where people start stockpiling, news stories go around, starts to light a fire under demand. So you've got less supply, more demand, and naturally price is actually going up. And as we all know, this crisis, it might take days, weeks, months, maybe even a year or two. It will finish at some point. But prices don't come down as quick as they went up, if they ever do. We all know that from COVID and previous issues. So my advice to everybody here is, if you were going to buy it this year and you've got the money to buy it now, then do it. Buy it now. Stock up, because things are only going to get more expensive. If you look at a map of the world, the routes where ships and aircraft can carry goods has diminished, meaning more demand through less flight paths and more ocean pathways. So whether it's a bag of rice at the supermarket or a really high ticket purchase of an electronic, these prices will go up because they can't be sustained. Global action has global impact, and we're not insulated. So I will repeat, if you were going to buy it anyway and you can afford it now, I think it's prudent to bring some of those purchases forward and get them. So in a practical sense, over the next few weeks, I will start stocking up on some of my store cupboard staples, especially things, as I said, like rice and things like that, which come from the east, because that's only going to go one way. But also even things that aren't, because what happens is that stuff from China and the Far East starts going up in price. And every retailer who's struggling and every distributor who's struggling will start to eyeball that and go, I wonder if we could put up pricing. I wonder if, the public understand there's a narrative around it that we've got to put up pricing because it was, the US and Israel and Iran, and it's out of our control. We're just the supermarket or the department store who's been caught in the middle of it. So we've been forced to put up prices. It's not us being greedy. And on some goods that will be factual in absolute all fairness. But on a lot of goods which don't have supply chains over that part of the world and aren't quite as impacted, although saying that the cost of energy all around the world is going to be going up, but there'll be some products that just are very, very limited, have limited impact. A lot of these retailers will go, the public are accepting of those price rises. Shove the other batch up as well that we don't need to. That happens. We've seen it. And prices don't come back down. We have still got today prices that are only slowly starting to come down off the heights of COVID. They'll never go back down to that price, even though the commodity prices have dropped to around about there on a lot of things. So a lot of these retailers will be greedy, but there will also be a lot of genuine issues around it. And also the Middle East and conflict, it has a domino effect. There'll be another thing and another thing, and then there might be a health scare, and then there might be some global attack on shipping or flight paths, which then push prices up even more. These things can happen all the time. And I think, don't just forward buy, but forward prepare. We need to prepare as a country, as families, as communities, as individuals. We need to prepare for weird and wonderful things happening, because it's going to get more often. So why not have 1 month, 2 months, 3 months worth of food in your house on those necessities, and start building yourself some room? Because if you have time, that's a resource. if you have time, you can shop around for deals, or you can sustain yourself for a few months while the next issue is at play. The global order, what we have known, what I've known, I was born in the early 90s, what I've known in my entire life has just descended into a bit of chaos recently. And the problem is, over the span of my life, the world has become far more interconnected, but the issues that were kind of, I suppose, the glue that was binding us all together is starting to loosen. And what we're realising as we've become tighter and some of these issues come to the front, they have a real global impact. So a localised war in the wrong country can put up prices in Europe, you know, and that is the danger of globalisation. I'm a big advocate actually of manufacturing domestically, of keeping supply chains local, and you know, making the native population aware of what the cost is, because we've been treated for too long with a bit of naivety and a bit of ignorance on our behalf to super low prices, which are probably unethical on a lot of things, but are very volatile to the global actions that are going on. So what we need to do here, in my opinion, putting my political hat on for a moment, is to wean ourselves off of Eastern influence, of Eastern prices, and actually start respecting what the cost of things are. You know, you look at the cost of some things in the shop and you just go, you know, some clothing in Primark, and you just go, that just does not feel right. You shouldn't be able to make a t-shirt for that cost. And, you know, we know it's unethical. You know, you're not stupid, I'm not stupid, we know. Yet we've almost been tricked by the establishment into accepting it and going along with it. Whereas actually the cost to produce a t-shirt in a country which has got the right labour laws, which is, you know, doing the right thing environmentally, which is doing the right thing as a business, paying taxes and all those kind of regulations and bureaucracy, is a lot more. But we don't want to pay that, but we also want to wean ourselves off the East. It's very, very difficult. But yeah, my political hat would be, we need to wean ourselves off the East. I don't think global issues are going to get any less. They're going to probably get a little bit more, but the impact of every one of them is going to be greatly exaggerated too, both genuinely, but also from corporations really, really making the most of them. So it's time to wake up, understand what things really cost to be made local, and wean ourselves off the East. I can't do that by myself. You can't do that watching it. It has to be led by government, and by governments, I would say plural, over many, many countries. But there's no appetite for that, because cheapest by a penny always wins. And that's why I say frugal isn't about being the cheapest, it's about being the most intentional with value. Perhaps governments, public sector, private sector, businesses should think about that in the same way. So that's my message, that's my thoughts, and perhaps I'm some form of expert on this. As I said, I've worked in procurement for a long time, and I can only see it going one way. So prepare, stock up, buy, but don't just do it for today's crisis. Think about this as a long-term mind shift into doing this, because this won't be the last time there is a global action which has a personal consequence for all of us. Thank you very much for watching, and as always, have an awesome day.